Today's A-list stars have financial advisors, brand deals, and social media empires. But back in old Hollywood, one bad contract, one messy divorce, or one bad habit could leave you broke forever. These 20 stars made millions, but ended up with nothing. Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle. In the early 1920s, Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle was Hollywood's highest-paid comedian. He had a $3 million contract, a mansion, and the world at his feet. Then, one party destroyed everything. It happened on Labor Day 1921 at a San Francisco hotel. Actress Virginia Rappe fell ill during the party and later died. Arbuckle was accused of assault, setting off a media frenzy. He faced 3 trials before being fully acquitted. But the damage was done. Hollywood turned on him. His films were banned, studios dropped him, and his fortune vanished. Legal fees ate up his millions. He sold his house, his cars, and took low-paying gigs under fake names just to survive. Finally, in 1932, Warner Brothers offered him a comeback. Arbuckle signed a film deal and celebrated with friends. The next day, he died of a heart attack. Broke, forgotten. A Hollywood giant erased overnight. Clara Bow. She had everything: fame, fortune, and a fan base that stretched worldwide. By the late 1920s, she was earning $5,000 a week, an unheard-of sum for a female star. But Hollywood didn't protect its own, and Clara's downfall came fast. She trusted the wrong people. Her business manager stole from her, leaving her with nothing. Meanwhile, tabloid rumors spread like wildfire. Stories of wild parties, affairs, and scandals. Some true, most exaggerated. The studio used her, then dumped her. Then came the talkies. Clara's Brooklyn accent didn't match her glamorous image. Critics mocked her, and the industry pushed her aside for newer faces. By 1931, at just 28 years old, she was done with Hollywood. She married cowboy actor Rex Bell and tried to live a quiet life. But financial trouble followed her. The IRS came after her for unpaid taxes. Her investments flopped. She struggled with mental health issues, spending time in and out of institutions. By the 1950s, the biggest star of the 1920s was living modestly, completely forgotten. When she died in 1965, there was no fortune left, no grand Hollywood send-off. John Gilbert. He had a $1.5 million contract, a mansion, and a future as bright as Valentino's. But when talkies arrived, MGM buried him, on purpose. His feud with MGM's head, Louis B. Mayer, was legendary. Some say it started when Gilbert punched Mayer for insulting his fiancée, Greta Garbo. Others claim Mayer simply hated that Gilbert was too independent. Either way, Mayer got his revenge. When talkies took over, MGM sabotaged Gilbert's career. They gave him poorly written roles and allegedly tampered with his voice recordings to make him sound ridiculous. Critics trashed him, audiences turned away, and within a few years, his once golden career crashed. His fortune went with it. Gilbert drank heavily, trying to cope with his public downfall. His lavish spending caught up with him, and with no work coming in, he sold off his assets one by one. The once great lover of the silver screen was broke by 1936. That same year, MGM offered him a comeback film, but before he could make it, Gilbert died of a heart attack at 38. Buster Keaton. His daring stunts and deadpan comedy made him one of the biggest stars of the 1920s. He had full creative control and owned his own production company, but one bad decision cost him everything. In 1928, Keaton signed with MGM, a move he later called the worst mistake of his life. The studio took away his control, forcing him into roles that didn't suit him. His career fizzled fast. Then came his divorce. His wife took half his fortune and won custody of their kids. Depressed, Keaton drank himself out of Hollywood. By the mid-1930s, he was broke, working as a low-paid gag writer for other comedians. Late in life, television rediscovered him. Keaton got small roles and finally earned some money back. But by then, his body was wrecked from years of alcohol and injuries. He died in 1966, finally recognized as a genius, but still a man who never got back what Hollywood took from him. Louise Brooks. By the late 1920s, she was making thousands per film and was considered a rising star. But Brooks had one problem: she refused to play the game. She hated the studio system. When Paramount demanded she take a new contract, she walked out. She went to Europe, starring in a few films, including the now iconic Pandora's Box. But when she tried to return to Hollywood, the industry shut the door on her. By the 1930s, her money was gone. She refused to beg for roles and had no backup plan. Brooks worked as a dancer, a gossip columnist, even a department store clerk. At one point, she lived in a cheap rooming house, selling her own books just to eat. Hollywood never forgave her. Studios blacklisted her for defying the system. By the time film historians rediscovered her in the 1950s, it was too late. She was already a forgotten relic. Judy Garland. MGM owned her life, feeding her pills to keep her thin and awake. She made millions, but never saw most of it. After The Wizard of Oz, she became one of the highest-paid actresses in the world. But bad contracts, divorces, and financial abuse drained her fortune. Managers stole from her, and multiple ex-husbands left her drowning in legal bills. The IRS came after her for unpaid taxes. By the 1960s, she faced eviction and debt, performing in tiny clubs just to pay rent. At times, she borrowed money from fans. Her final performance was for $100 a night in a London nightclub. She died soon after in 1969 at 47, bankrupt, exhausted, and alone. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn lived fast, spent faster. His roles in Robin Hood and Captain Blood made him a superstar, earning over $2 million in his prime. But Flynn treated money like it would never run out. He owned yachts, mansions, and threw endless parties. He also had no interest in paying taxes. The IRS hit him hard, demanding $900,000 in back taxes, more than he had. Then came the scandals. Legal battles over assault allegations ruined his image. Studios backed away. His career collapsed overnight. By the 1950s, he was living in Jamaica, completely broke. He tried writing, boxing, anything to make money. Nothing worked. In 1959, he died at 50, broke and forgotten. His final asset? A yacht, which he used as collateral for unpaid debts. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow was Hollywood's first true blonde bombshell. By the mid-1930s, she was earning $4,000 a week, a fortune for the time. But she never actually owned any of it. Her controlling mother and stepfather handled her finances. They took her money, spent wildly, and left her with nothing. She never saw a dime of her own fortune. Her husband, MGM producer Paul Byrne, died mysteriously, sparking rumors that Harlow was in danger. But instead of protecting her, MGM used the scandal to sell more tickets. By 1937, Harlow fell seriously ill with kidney failure. MGM paid for her medical care, but doctors could do little. At just 26 years old, she died of uremic poisoning. Her left estate was a fraction of what she had earned. Bela Lugosi. He became a horror icon overnight after Dracula, 1931. He had the voice, the presence, and the fame, but what he didn't have was money. Despite being the face of classic horror, Lugosi was never well paid. Universal Studios underpaid him while giving bigger salaries to his co-stars. Worse, he turned down the role of Frankenstein's monster, a decision that cost him millions. His personal life made things worse. He developed a morphine addiction to deal with chronic pain, draining what little money he had left. By the 1950s, he was completely broke. He lived in cheap motels, relying on friends for food and shelter. Lugosi died in 1956, buried in his Dracula cape, but with no fortune left behind. Dorothy Dandridge. She was the first black woman nominated for a Best Actress Oscar. She should have become a Hollywood powerhouse, but the industry never let her win. Despite her breakthrough role in Carmen Jones, 1954, studios refused to give her leading roles. They wanted her to play maids and side characters, but she refused. That decision cost her everything. With no work, Dandridge's money dried up. She invested in a nightclub, but it failed. Her second husband, who handled her finances, lost most of her savings. Then the IRS came knocking. She owed $139,000 in back taxes. Desperate, she took any gig she could get. She sang in Vegas, but wasn't even allowed to walk through the front doors of the hotels she performed in. Her final years were filled with depression, failed relationships, and financial ruin. In 1965, she was found dead in her apartment at just 42 years old, with only $2 in her bank account. Mickey Rooney. With Andy Hardy and Babes in Arms, he was earning $7,000 a week, more than most adult actors. By 1940, he was worth over $4 million. But Mickey Rooney's biggest problem? He never learned how to hold on to his money. Rooney lived large. He gambled, bought racehorses, and burned through cash like it would never run out. Then came the divorces, 8 marriages, each one costing him more money. By the 1960s, his career was fading. He took any role he could find, sometimes working for just a few $100s. To make matters worse, his own accountant stole from him. By the time he figured it out, his entire fortune was gone. In his final years, he was financially and physically abused by his last wife and stepson. Rooney died in 2014 at 93, with only $18,000 left to his name. Frances Farmer. She had talent, beauty, and a rebellious streak that Hollywood didn't like. She refused to play by the studio's rules. She spoke her mind, rejected fake publicity stunts, and fought with producers. Soon, she was labeled difficult. The studios stopped offering her major roles. Her personal life spiraled. After a series of public outbursts, she was institutionalized in 1942. What followed was years of horrific abuse. Reports claimed she was lobotomized, drugged, and physically mistreated in a mental hospital. Whether or not the lobotomy happened, one thing was clear: her career was over. When she was released, she had nothing left. The money was gone, the fame had disappeared, and Hollywood had moved on. She worked odd jobs, even as a hotel clerk, just to survive. In the 1950s, she tried to make a small comeback, appearing on television. But it wasn't enough. She died in 1970, broke and forgotten. Veronica Lake. With her signature peekaboo hairstyle, she was a top box office draw, starring in classics like Sullivan's Travels and This Gun for Hire. At her peak, she earned $4,500 a week, but it didn't last. Lake had a reputation for being difficult, often clashing with directors and co-stars. By the late 40s, the studios had enough. Roles dried up, and so did her income. She turned to Broadway and television, but Hollywood never welcomed her back. Then came the bad decisions. She married 3 times, with each divorce costing her money. She tried producing movies, but the projects flopped. Worst of all, alcohol took control of her life. By the 1950s, she was completely broke. By the 1970s, film buffs tried to revive her legacy, but it was too late. She died in 1973, penniless, with her ashes left unclaimed in a funeral home for years. Montgomery Clift. He brought raw emotion to films like A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity, earning millions. But one event changed everything. In 1956, Clift suffered a horrific car crash after leaving a dinner at Elizabeth Taylor's house. His face was badly disfigured, requiring painful surgeries. The studios saw him as damaged goods, and work became harder to find. Clift's medical bills piled up. Insurance barely covered anything, and his fortune vanished fast. He relied on painkillers and alcohol just to function, but that only made things worse. In 1966, at just 45 years old, he was found dead in his apartment from a heart attack. Some called it the longest suicide in Hollywood history. Gloria Swanson. She was Hollywood royalty in the 1920s, making $10,000 a week and starring in some of the biggest silent films of all time. But unlike many stars, she wanted creative control. That decision cost her everything. By the late 20s, Swanson had grown tired of studio interference. She decided to finance her own films, a risky move in an industry where studios controlled distribution. Her first self-funded project, Queen Kelly, was a disaster. The movie was never properly released and she lost millions. By the 1940s, Swanson was deep in debt. The once great star was reduced to radio shows and odd TV roles just to stay afloat. Her big break came in 1950 when she starred in Sunset Boulevard, playing a faded star clinging to the past. The role mirrored her real life. Despite her comeback, the fortune never returned. She spent her later years selling health foods and living modestly. Lana Turner. She had the Hollywood dream until it became a nightmare. She was one of the biggest stars of the 1940s and 50s, earning over $5,000 a week at her peak. But behind the glamour, her money was vanishing fast. Her lavish spending was one problem. Turner loved designer clothes, diamonds, and luxury homes. But her bad luck in love was worse. She married 7 times and nearly every divorce came with a financial hit. Then came the scandal that defined her life. In 1958, her daughter, Cheryl Crane, stabbed Turner's abusive boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, to death. The trial became tabloid gold, and while Turner's career survived, her personal life spiraled. By the 1970s, her movie roles dried up. She tried TV and Broadway, but the paychecks weren't what they used to be. Then came the IRS. Decades of unpaid taxes left her owing thousands, forcing her to sell off her jewelry and art. In her final years, Turner lived quietly, relying on Social Security checks and the kindness of friends. She had been a Hollywood goddess, but by the end, she had little left to show for it. Marilyn Monroe. She was the most famous woman in the world. Her movies made millions, and she was Hollywood's biggest draw in the 1950s. But despite the wealth around her, Monroe never controlled her own money. Her contracts paid her far less than her male co-stars. In Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Jane Russell earned $200,000. Monroe got $18,000. She fought for better pay, but by the time Fox offered her a real deal, it was too late. Monroe's money was mismanaged by the people around her. She was constantly in debt, spending more than she earned on lavish homes, designer clothes, and helping friends. Worse, she was addicted to prescription drugs, and her medical bills piled up. By 1962, Monroe was struggling to stay afloat. She was fired from Something's Got to Give and lost her biggest paycheck yet. Desperate, she agreed to do magazine shoots just to make ends meet. She died later that year, alone in her Brentwood home, with only a few $1,000s in her bank account. Peter Lorre. He was one of Hollywood's most distinctive actors. His eerie performances in M and Casablanca made him a legend. But despite decades in film, Lorre died nearly broke. The problem? He never earned what he was worth. Studios paid him far less than his leading co-stars, typecasting him in villain roles instead of big money parts. When work slowed, so did his income. But Lorre's biggest downfall was gambling. He had a habit of betting on everything: cards, horses, anything with odds. He also struggled with drug addiction, and his medical bills drained his savings. When Lorre died of a stroke in 1964, he had almost nothing left. His friends had to pay for his funeral. Marlon Brando. He was once the highest-paid actor in the world. By the time he made The Godfather, he was earning millions. But bad investments, lawsuits, and personal chaos nearly destroyed him financially. Brando lived extravagantly. He bought a private island, multiple homes, and funded political causes. But he was also reckless with money. He had at least 11 children, many of whom relied on him financially. Then came the scandals. His son was convicted of murder, leading to a long, expensive legal battle. His daughter died by suicide, sending Brando into seclusion and depression. By the late 1990s, Brando was struggling. He had sold off most of his assets and was renting out rooms in his mansion to make money. His health declined, and he owed millions in unpaid bills. He died in 2004, leaving a financial mess for his family. The estate had millions in debt, forcing his belongings to be auctioned off to cover costs. Debbie Reynolds. She was one of Hollywood's most beloved stars, known for Singin' in the Rain and her wholesome image. She made millions in her career, but by the 1990s she was deep in debt and nearly broke. Her financial downfall wasn't due to reckless spending. It was betrayal. Her second husband, Harry Carl, a wealthy businessman, secretly gambled away her entire fortune. By the time she discovered the truth, her bank account was empty and she owed millions in debt. Determined to recover, Reynolds bought a Las Vegas hotel and casino in the 1990s, hoping it would save her. Instead, it failed spectacularly. The venture left her bankrupt and forced her to sell her beloved Hollywood memorabilia collection. Reynolds had spent decades collecting costumes and props from Hollywood's golden age, including Marilyn Monroe's iconic dress. It was her last lifeline. In 2011, she auctioned it all, bringing in $25 million. It saved her from complete financial ruin, but it was bittersweet. She had held on to Hollywood history for years, only to sell it when she had no choice. Reynolds continued performing into her later years, but her fortune never fully recovered. She died in 2016, just one day after her daughter, Carrie Fisher. In Hollywood, behind the bright lights and red carpets, stars were locked in a struggle unseen by their adoring fans. They were bound by slave contracts, merciless deals controlling their every move, from their screen image to their private lives. These weren't just contracts, they were shackles turning fame into a prison. Imagine the industry that brought them stardom was the same one holding them captive. This is the untold story of stardom and hidden chains. The story of 10 Hollywood stars fighting for freedom in a world where fame can come at the ultimate price. Mick Rooney. He started his career as a child star and later became one of the most popular actors in the 1930s and 1940s. However, despite his widespread popularity, his financial situation was far from ideal due to the terms of his contract with MGM. Rooney's contract with MGM, like many contracts during the studio system era, was structured in a way that heavily favored the studio. It often included provisions that gave MGM significant control over his career, compensation, and other aspects of his professional life. While he was undoubtedly a major box office draw for the studio, Rooney struggled to secure fair compensation for his work. One of the primary issues Rooney faced was a lack of financial transparency and control over his earnings. MGM, like other studios at the time, took a substantial portion of its stars' income, leaving the actors with a fraction of the profits generated by their films. This practice, combined with the complex accounting methods employed by the studio, meant that even highly successful actors like Rooney had little control over their financial affairs. Rooney's situation was compounded by the fact that he started his career as a child actor, and his earnings during those early years were often mishandled or withheld. Despite being a major star, Rooney found himself facing financial difficulties and struggled to break free from the exploitative terms of his contract. Olivia de Havilland. Her challenge to the long-term contract system centered around the studio's tight control over actors. In the old Hollywood system, stars like de Havilland were bound to lengthy contracts that dictated every aspect of their careers. These contracts often lasted for 7 years or more and gave the studio the power to choose roles, set working conditions, and even control public appearances. De Havilland took a stand against this restrictive system. She believed the studios had too much control and that such long-term contracts limited an actor's ability to choose roles and advance in their careers. In 1943, she took her case to court and won a landmark legal victory, creating a precedent that changed the industry. The de Havilland Law, as it came to be known, stated that a studio could not extend an actor's contract beyond 7 calendar years. This legal triumph was a significant step in breaking the studio's stronghold over actors and gave performers more freedom to choose their projects and negotiate better terms. James Cagney. Cagney, known for his strong-willed personality, clashed with Warner Brothers over various issues, including disagreements about the types of roles he wanted to pursue. Frustrated with the limitations imposed by his contract, he decided to take a stand. In a move that was quite bold during that era, Cagney fought to break free from his Warner Brothers contract. This struggle was not an easy one, as studios held considerable power over actors. However, Cagney's determination and legal efforts eventually led to his release from the restrictive contract. Cagney's success in breaking free from Warner Brothers contributed to the growing pushback against the studio system, highlighting the changing dynamics in Hollywood. Rita Hayworth. She encountered difficulties with her contract at Columbia Pictures, a common challenge for many actors in the classic Hollywood era. The contracts during this time were often restrictive, granting studios significant control over an actor's career, including roles, publicity, and other professional decisions. Hayworth's contract with Columbia likely dictated the roles she could take, the terms of her employment, and possibly even aspects of her personal life, such as public appearances and relationships. The specific details of her contract aren't provided, but these agreements were generally structured to favor the studios rather than the actors. After facing challenges with her contract, Hayworth's career trajectory changed, and her personal life played a role in this transformation. Her marriage to Orson Welles, a celebrated filmmaker and actor, ended. Such personal events could influence an actor's career, especially in an era when public image and personal life were carefully curated by studios. Buster Keaton, best known for his creativity and unique approach to filmmaking, found that his move to MGM limited his creative control over his films. Unlike his earlier works where he had more independence and influence, the terms of his MGM contract restricted his ability to shape the direction of his projects. The decline in creative control had such a significant impact on Keaton's artistic freedom and the unique style for which he was known. Studios during this era often tightly managed every aspect of a film, and MGM was no different. From casting to script, this shift in control affected the quality and innovation of Keaton's work, and was so stringent that there was almost nothing he could do about it. Bette Davis. She was no doubt a prominent actress in her time, but she too faced conflicts with Warner Brothers regarding her contract and the roles assigned to her. She was forced to work around the clock with little to no breaks. She wasn't allowed to complain or even do anything about the working conditions. Davis, known for her strong-willed personality and desire for diverse and challenging roles, clashed with Warner Brothers over the direction of her career. There were often disagreements about the type of roles she was assigned and all of the stress the working hours put on her, to the point where it began to affect her mental health. Joan Crawford. Crawford's difficulties with her MGM contract led to a legal battle between her and the studio. The specifics of the disagreements and legal proceedings aren't detailed here, but it's clear that Crawford sought more control over her career trajectory. As a result of the legal dispute, Joan Crawford moved to Warner Brothers. This move was likely a strategic decision to break free from the constraints of her MGM contract and gain more autonomy in choosing her roles and shaping her career. Judy Garland. She was a star under MGM's reign, grappled with the formidable constraints of her contract, enduring an exhaustive workload that adversely affected both her personal and professional life. The contractual limitations dictated her roles, public image, and even aspects of her private life, hindering her ability to make choices aligned with her desires. The relentless production schedules of the studio system demanded arduous hours of work, contributing to physical and emotional strain. Amidst the studio's control, Garland faced personal challenges that were exacerbated by the pressures imposed upon her. Her iconic role in The Wizard of Oz bore witness to the toll of this demanding environment, with the studio's practices impacting her health. Garland's experiences underscore the darker aspects of the classic Hollywood studio system, shedding light on the challenges endured by even the most talented and beloved performers. Edward G. Robinson. Robinson, a respected actor, found himself in a clash with Warner Brothers concerning his contract and compensation. Despite his esteemed status, Robinson confronted issues with the terms that Warner Brothers had set. Determined to rectify this, he took the decisive step of initiating legal action against the studio, seeking improved terms and fair compensation for his contributions. Robinson's willingness to challenge the studio's practices exemplifies the struggles many actors faced in negotiating equitable contracts during the classic Hollywood era. Veronica Lake. Although Veronica Lake is celebrated for her captivating femme fatale roles during the 1940s, experienced a tumultuous period marked by contract disputes with Paramount Pictures. As her popularity soared, conflicts with the studio began to emerge, contributing to a decline in her career. Lake's contractual disagreements with Paramount likely revolved around creative differences, contractual terms, and perhaps her desire for more control over her roles and career trajectory. The studio system of that era often placed significant constraints on actors, and clashes with the studio were not uncommon when stars sought more autonomy. These disputes and the resulting tensions between Lakey and Paramount had detrimental effects on her career. The studio's influence over casting decisions and project choices could profoundly impact an actor's opportunities and public image. Consequently, Lake's career faced setbacks and her prominence in Hollywood diminished. It's the early 1940s. Hollywood's golden age is in full bloom, a time when cinema was more than entertainment. It was a beacon of dreams in a world riddled with conflict. On the surface, Hollywood was a land of endless glamour and opportunity, but beneath this glittering facade lay hidden tales of personal struggle and emotional turmoil. Take, for instance, the premiere of Gone with the Wind in 1939, a cinematic event that captivated millions. Among the glittering stars was Vivien Leigh, an actress whose portrayal of Scarlett O'Hara would become legendary. Yet, unknown to the adoring public, Leigh was embarking on a lifelong battle with bipolar disorder, a struggle that would contrast sharply with her on-screen triumphs. Or consider the case of Frances Farmer, a rising star in the late 1930s whose career was abruptly derailed by a series of mental health challenges and legal troubles, leading to a tragic and misunderstood life. Her story, like many others from this era, was a stark reminder of the human cost of fame. These narratives, from Gene Tierney's unseen battles with mental health and personal loss to Rita Hayworth, who behind her glamorous image faced a tumultuous personal life, reveal a different side of Hollywood, a side where the bright lights of fame cast long, dark shadows of loneliness, depression, and misunderstanding. As we delve into these stories, we're not just revisiting the past glories of cinema, we're uncovering the hidden, often painful realities faced by some of its most iconic figures. This journey through Hollywood's history is not just about the stars we thought we knew, it's about revealing the untold stories that remind us that even in a world of make-believe, reality is never far away. What secrets do these stars hold, and what truths about fame and its costs can we learn from their lives? The answers lie in the untold, deeply human stories of Hollywood's most enigmatic figures. The enigmatic Vivien Leigh. Her portrayal of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind immortalized her in the pantheon of cinematic legends. Yet the story of Vivien Leigh is not just one of accolades and applause. It's a tale woven with threads of brilliance and despair, a narrative that reveals the stark contrast between her public persona and private life. Born in British India in 1913, Vivien's journey to stardom was marked by determination and an unwavering passion for acting. Her ascent to fame was meteoric, fueled by a combination of talent, beauty, and an indomitable spirit. However, beneath the surface of this success lay a tumultuous personal life, marred by struggles that remained largely hidden from the public eye. Lee's life was a constant battle with mental health issues, a struggle that was little understood and often stigmatized during her time. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, known at the time as manic depression, a condition that led to extreme mood swings and erratic behavior. These episodes often occurred at critical moments in her career, impacting her professional relationships and her ability to work. Her marriage to Laurence Olivier, while a union of two of the greatest acting talents, was fraught with challenges. The couple's passionate relationship was often in the public eye, but what remained unseen was how Lieghi's mental health struggles put a strain on their marriage. Her condition, coupled with Olivier's rising career, created a complex dynamic that was both passionate and tumultuous. Despite her personal challenges, Vivien Leigh's professional achievements were undeniable. She won 2 Academy Awards for Best Actress, a testament to her extraordinary talent. However, her career was also marked by periods of inactivity, partly due to her health issues. Her struggle with tuberculosis, which eventually led to her untimely death at the age of 53, added another layer of tragedy to her life. Vivien Leigh's story is not just a tale of a Hollywood icon, it's a poignant reminder of the human behind the star. Her life challenges the glamorous image often associated with movie stars, revealing a reality marked by personal battles and resilience. Leigh's legacy is not only in her unforgettable performances, but also in her enduring spirit in the face of adversity. Frances Farmer's tragic tale. This Hollywood story is one of the most poignant and tragic. Her career, filled with promise and potential, was overshadowed by a series of personal and legal troubles that would ultimately define her legacy more than her cinematic achievements. Born in 1913, the same year as Vivien Leigh, Frances Farmer's rise in Hollywood during the 1930s and 1940s was marked by her striking beauty and formidable acting talent. She quickly gained attention for her performances in films like Come and Get It and Rhythm on the Range. However, Farmer's outspoken nature and nonconformist attitudes, rare in Hollywood at the time, often put her at odds with studio executives and the media. The turning point in Farmer's life came with her increasing emotional and psychological struggles. Her behavior became erratic, and she had several run-ins with the law, leading to sensationalized headlines. The most heartbreaking chapter of her life began with her involuntary commitment to psychiatric institutions. During these periods, she underwent various treatments, including electroconvulsive therapy, which were standard practices at the time but are now considered controversial. The narrative of Frances Farmer is often overshadowed by myths and exaggerations, particularly regarding her mental health and the treatments she received. Her story has been the subject of numerous books and films, some of which have contributed to the sensationalism surrounding her life. However, beneath these sensationalized accounts lies the story of a woman whose bright future in Hollywood was derailed by a combination of personal demons, a misunderstanding of mental health, and a society unprepared to handle such issues with sensitivity and understanding. Farmer's career never fully recovered from these challenges, and she spent much of her later life away from the spotlight. Her story is a stark reminder of the fragility of fame and the human cost of untreated mental health issues. Frances Farmer's legacy in Hollywood is not just as an actress, but as a symbol of the often tragic intersection of fame, mental health, and the unforgiving nature of public scrutiny. Gene Tierney's unseen battles. In the golden era of Hollywood, Gene Tierney's presence on the silver screen was synonymous with elegance and grace. Yet, behind the captivating performances and the stunning visage that graced countless movie posters, Tierney was waging a personal battle far removed from the public eye. Her journey in Hollywood began with promise and success. Tierney quickly rose to fame with her striking looks and talent, starring in classics like Laura and Leave Her to Heaven. Her performance in the latter earned her an Academy Award nomination, cementing her status as a leading lady of her time. However, Tierney's life was marked by a series of personal tragedies and health issues that profoundly affected her. One of the most heart-wrenching episodes was the birth of her daughter, who was born deaf and with severe mental disabilities, a consequence of Tierney contracting rubella during her pregnancy. This event took a significant toll on Tierney, leading to periods of depression. Tierney's struggles with mental health were compounded by the pressures of Hollywood fame. She faced a series of emotional challenges, including turbulent relationships and the stress of maintaining her public image. Her mental health issues eventually led to a hiatus from acting, during which she received treatment, including electroconvulsive therapy. Despite these challenges, Tierney made a comeback in the 1950s, though she never regained the same level of stardom. Her later years were quieter, marked by a retreat from the public eye and a focus on her personal life and health. The story of Gene Tierney is a poignant reminder of the hidden struggles that often lie behind a facade of celebrity. Her life challenges the often glamorized image of Hollywood stars, revealing a narrative filled with personal hardship, resilience, and the pursuit of peace away from the limelight. Rita Hayworth, Glamour and Pain. The image of Rita Hayworth flipping her hair in Gilda has become an iconic symbol of Hollywood glamour. However, the life of Margarita Carmen Cancino, known to the world as Rita Hayworth, was a complex tapestry of dazzling highs and profound lows, reflecting a stark contrast between her public persona and private struggles. Hayworth's rise to fame was meteoric. Known for her sensational dance skills and captivating beauty, she quickly became one of the era's most beloved stars. Her performances in films like The Lady from Shanghai and Gilda solidified her status as a Hollywood icon, but the spotlight that shone so brightly on her professional life cast deep shadows on her personal world. Behind the scenes, Hayworth's life was marked by tumultuous relationships, including 5 marriages, most notably to Orson Welles and Prince Ali Khan. These relationships, often played out in the public eye, brought their own set of challenges and heartaches. However, it was her struggle with Alzheimer's disease, a diagnosis that came later in her life, that perhaps marked the most challenging battle she faced. Hayworth's decline due to Alzheimer's, at a time when there was little understanding of the disease, was heartbreaking. Her condition was initially misunderstood as alcoholism, a misconception that added to the challenges she faced. The latter years of her life were a far cry from the glitz and glamour of her Hollywood days as she became more reclusive, grappling with a disease that slowly took away the memories of her illustrious career. Hayworth's later years were a stark contrast to the vibrant energy she once radiated on screen. As Alzheimer's disease progressed, it gradually dimmed the memory of her once luminous career. The public, largely unaware of the nature of her illness, witnessed a beloved icon's retreat from the limelight, a retreat marked by confusion and misunderstanding. This period of her life, less documented and understood, stands as a silent chapter in the story of one of Hollywood's most celebrated figures. Montgomery Clift, a tormented genius. Often hailed as one of the original method actors in Hollywood, Montgomery brought an intensity and vulnerability to his roles that was unmatched in his time. His performances in films like A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity showcased a depth and sensitivity that set him apart from his contemporaries. However, the same sensitivity that made him a star also made him profoundly susceptible to the pressures of fame and the personal demons that haunted him. Born in 1920, Clift's upbringing was marked by a nomadic lifestyle, with his family frequently moving across Europe and the United States. This transient childhood, while enriching in many ways, also instilled in him a sense of detachment and loneliness, themes that would recur throughout his life and career. Clift's early foray into theater acting laid the foundation for his future success in Hollywood, where he quickly established himself as a leading man with a unique, introspective approach to his craft. Clift's career, however, was dramatically altered by a devastating car accident in 1956. The accident left his face partially paralyzed and marked a turning point in his life and career. He became increasingly dependent on alcohol and prescription drugs. a dependency that exacerbated his existing struggles with mental health. The accident not only changed his physical appearance, but also seemed to deepen the emotional turmoil he expressed in his performances. Despite his personal struggles, Clift continued to deliver powerful performances. His roles in post-accident films like Judgment at Nuremberg and The Misfits were testament to his enduring talent and his ability to channel his personal pain into his art. However, the toll of his accident, compounded by the pressures of his career and his unresolved personal issues, led to a gradual decline in his health. Clift's relationships, both romantic and platonic, were complex and often fraught with challenges. He was known for his close friendships with several of his co-stars, including Elizabeth Taylor, who became a lifelong friend and supporter. His romantic life, kept private and away from the public eye, was a source of speculation and intrigue. Clift, a deeply private individual, struggled with the invasive nature of fame and the often unforgiving scrutiny of the Hollywood spotlight. The final years of Clift's life were marked by a retreat from the public eye and a continuing battle with health issues. His death in 1966 at the age of 45 was a tragic end to a life and career that had shown such promise and brilliance. Barbara Payton's downfall. Her story in Hollywood is a cautionary tale of meteoric rise and precipitous fall, a narrative that starkly contrasts the initial promise of her career with its tragic end. Payton, who burst onto the Hollywood scene in the late 1940s, possessed the looks and talent that seemed to destine her for stardom. However, her life quickly spiraled into a series of personal crises and public scandals that overshadowed her professional achievements. Born in 1927 in Minnesota, Payton moved to Los Angeles in her early 20s. Her striking blonde beauty and charisma quickly caught the attention of film executives, leading to roles in films like Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye and Trapped. Her performance in these films showcased not just her physical allure, but a genuine acting talent. However, despite her promising start, Payton's career was soon derailed by a tumultuous personal life. Payton's life off-screen became fodder for the tabloids, marked by high-profile romances, including a tumultuous relationship with actor Tom Neal and her marriage to Franchot Tone, which was marred by violence and public altercations. These personal issues began to affect her professional life, leading to a decline in the quality and quantity of her roles. As her career faltered, Payton's personal struggles deepened. She battled with alcoholism and financial difficulties, which led to a series of arrests and public incidents that further tarnished her reputation. The film industry, which had once welcomed her, now turned its back, leaving her to grapple with her demons largely alone. The latter part of Payton's life was a far cry from her Hollywood beginnings. She faced poverty, struggled with addiction, and was largely forgotten by an industry that had once celebrated her. Her death in 1967 at the age of 39 was a tragic end to a life that had once held so much potential. Barbara Payton's story is a stark reminder of the ephemeral nature of fame and the destructive power of personal demons in the unforgiving world of Hollywood. Her journey from starlet to forgotten figure highlights the precarious balance between public image and personal reality in the life of a celebrity. Payton's life, marked by brief success and prolonged struggle, serves as a poignant example of the often harsh realities that lie behind the glamour of the silver screen. The complex life of Errol Flynn. His name is synonymous with the swashbuckling heroes he portrayed on screen, a symbol of charisma, adventure, and romantic allure in Hollywood's golden age. However, Flynn's off-screen life was as complex and tumultuous as any plot in his films, marked by scandal, legal battles, and a lifestyle that both fascinated and shocked the public. Born in Tasmania in 1909, Flynn's early life was as adventurous as his film roles. He was known for his wanderlust, traveling to various parts of the world, including New Guinea, where he sought fortune and adventure. This restless spirit eventually led him to Hollywood, where he quickly rose to fame after his breakthrough role in Captain Blood, 1935. His portrayal of dashing and daring characters in films like The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, made him one of the most popular and highest-paid actors of his time. Flynn's public persona as a charming rogue was mirrored in his personal life. He was famous for his romantic escapades, marrying 3 times and being linked to numerous actresses and socialites. His lifestyle was characterized by lavish parties, excessive drinking, and a general disdain for convention. This behavior, while initially adding to his allure, eventually began to tarnish his image as the darker aspects of his life came to light. One of the most significant and damaging episodes in Flynn's life was the 1943 trial, where he was accused of statutory rape. Although he was acquitted, the trial was a media sensation, and the allegations left a lasting stain on his reputation. The phrase "in like Flynn" became synonymous with sexual conquest, further cementing his image as a womanizer, an image that Flynn himself seemed to embrace publicly, despite the personal and professional costs. Flynn's health began to deteriorate in the 1950s, exacerbated by years of heavy drinking and drug use. His once matinee idol looks faded, and his performances suffered, leading to fewer and less prestigious roles. Despite his declining health, Flynn continued to live a life marked by excess and controversy, including a much-publicized relationship with Beverly Adland, a teenager in his final years. Errol Flynn's death in 1959 at the age of 50 was seen by many as a tragic end to a life that had burned too brightly. His autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, published posthumously, offered a candid look at his life and career, filled with anecdotes that confirmed many of the rumors about his lifestyle. Veronica Lake's lost sparkle. With her trademark peekaboo hairstyle and sultry on-screen presence, Veronica Lake became an iconic figure of 1940s Hollywood. However, behind the glamorous image and successful career, Lake's life was a journey marked by dramatic rises and falls, reflecting the often harsh realities of stardom. Born as Constance Frances Marie Aukelman in 1922, Lake's early life was unsettled, with frequent moves and a troubled family background. Her entry into Hollywood was almost as if by fate, a combination of her striking looks and a chance encounter with a film producer. She quickly gained attention for her roles in films like I Wanted Wings and Sullivan's Travels, where her distinctive hairstyle and alluring screen presence made her an instant star. Lake's most successful period came in the early 1940s with a series of film noir roles alongside Alan Ladd. Their on-screen chemistry in movies like This Gun for Hire and The Blue Dahlia was electric, making them one of the era's most popular screen pairs. However, as quickly as her star rose, it began to fade, impacted by a series of personal and professional challenges. One of the first signs of trouble was Lake's reputation for being difficult on set. Her unpredictable behavior and clashes with directors and co-stars became increasingly problematic. This difficult reputation, whether deserved or exaggerated, began to impact her career opportunities. Lake's personal life was equally tumultuous. She was married 4 times, with each marriage ending in divorce. Her struggles with mental health and alcoholism became more pronounced as her career waned. By the 1950s, Lake's star had significantly dimmed. She made sporadic appearances in films and television, but the glory of her early career seemed a distant memory. The most poignant aspect of Lake's story is her fall into obscurity and financial hardship in the 1960s. Once a glamorous Hollywood icon, she was found working as a waitress in New York, a startling and saddening revelation to her fans. This period of her life was marked by struggles with poverty, mental health issues, and continued battles with alcoholism. Lake attempted a comeback in the late 1960s and early 1970s, but her health issues and the changing landscape of Hollywood made it difficult for her to regain her former status. Her death in 1973, at the age of 50, was a quiet end to a life that had once been the subject of intense public fascination. In a time when society believed that a woman's place was in the kitchen, a caliber of women arose and decided they were going to break down barriers and chase their dreams, consequences be damned. Some of these women went on to become renowned writers, actresses, and even directors in the golden age of Hollywood. Back then, the film industry was male-dominated, but somehow, these women were not only able to rise to the top of the industry, but also opened the door for other women to thrive. From the daring Mae West to the fearless Katharine Hepburn, these are some of the women who broke barriers in the golden age of Hollywood. Mary Pickford. In the early 1900s, Mary Pickford, born Gladys Louise Smith, was just a young girl from Canada, but one thing was certain: she was destined for greatness. Despite her sweet and innocent appearance with those trademark ringlets, there was more to her than met the eye. When she entered Hollywood, she made moves that were typically synonymous with men at the time. Mary Pickford was a multi-talented woman, and her exploits in Hollywood proved to everyone that she was a genius. Mary wasn't just a movie star, she was the movie star. Back in the early days of American cinema, she skyrocketed to fame, becoming the most popular and influential actress of her time. From obscurity to stardom, she made it look easy, and thousands of fans couldn't get enough of her. Mary Pickford wasn't content with just being a pretty face on the silver screen. She had her eyes set on shaping the very industry that had embraced her. Among her many accomplishments, she was applauded for her exploits as the founder of United Artists. She was one of the masterminds behind this game-changing studio that allowed artists to have more control over their work. But Mary was more than just a brilliant actress and a savvy businesswoman. She was a sharp producer, too. She wasn't afraid to roll up her sleeves and get things done behind the scenes. Her talent and drive weren't just admirable for a woman of her time, they were remarkable. She is remembered today for her famous works like Little Lord Fauntleroy, which showcased her versatility, and Pollyanna, which solidified her status as America's sweetheart. And let's not forget Coquette, a role that won her the first ever Academy Award for Best Actress. Mary Pickford certainly left a mark in the industry and showed other women that it is possible to thrive in a male-dominated industry. Alice Guy. In a time when movies were still finding their feet and the flickering silver screen was a realm dominated by men in bowler hats and handlebar mustaches, there emerged a woman who would forever change the course of Hollywood history. Her name was Alice Guy, the world's first woman filmmaker, a true pioneer who danced to the beat of her celluloid dreams. Alice Guy didn't just tiptoe into the movie business, she waltzed in and seized control. Back in the late 19th century, she held the reins of production at Gaumont in France. In an era when women were usually confined to playing supporting roles, Alice took center stage, directing her own destiny. With a spirit as adventurous as her storytelling, she packed her bags and sailed across the Atlantic to the land of stars and stripes, where she boldly planted her flag on the cinematic frontier. And this was years before women could cast their votes in either country. One of the things that set Alice Guy apart from the rest is her sheer prolificacy. Like a whirlwind of creativity, she directed hundreds of films during a time when the concept of feature-length movies was but a glimmer in someone's eye. She was at the helm from 1896 to 1916, essentially from the very birth of cinema itself. While her contemporaries were content with rudimentary acting on screen, Alice had a vision. She insisted on an acting style tailored specifically for the silver screen. Her actors didn't just recite lines. They emoted. They connected with the audience through the lens. It was a revelation, and it laid the foundation for the emotive powerhouse that modern cinema would become. But Alice's innovation didn't stop there. She was known for seamlessly integrating special effects into narrative storytelling, giving birth to what we now call trick films. Her creativity knew no bounds, and she had a knack for using close-up shots to elicit maximum emotional impact from her audience. Dorothy Arzner. She once said, "My philosophy is that to be a director, you cannot be subject to anyone, even the head of the studio." This statement proves that she was indeed a leader and a creative who was not afraid to do things her way. Dorothy Arzner initially pursued a career in medicine, but soon found her true calling in the nascent world of cinema. She began her Hollywood career as a stenographer at the famous Players Lasky Corporation, where her exceptional skills and ambition caught the attention of director William DeMille. DeMille mentored her, and she swiftly climbed the ranks, working as a writer, editor, and eventually a director. Anyone who came across her could tell that she was laser-focused on her career and didn't let anyone stop her from achieving all that she wanted to achieve. After investing years into her career, her groundbreaking moment came when she directed Clara Bow in The Wild Party in 1929, marking Bow's transition to sound films. This film showed Arzner's unique vision and ability to capture the essence of complex female characters. Her work with Katharine Hepburn in Christopher Strong and Joan Crawford in The Bride Wore Red further solidified her reputation as a director who understood and celebrated the strength and complexity of women. In a Hollywood industry known for its conformity, Arzner was a rebel. She refused to compromise her creative vision and insisted on directing films her way, a trait that set her apart from many of her contemporaries. As the only woman director working at a major Hollywood studio in the 1930s, she faced numerous challenges and prejudices, but her determination remained unshaken. Dorothy Arzner was the very image of resilience and innovation. She not only proved that women could excel in male-dominated industries, but also shattered glass ceilings for female directors in Hollywood. Katharine Hepburn. Whenever the name Katharine Hepburn is mentioned, people instantly remember a fearless, determined, and talented woman, an unyielding force of nature that Hollywood had never seen before. With a unique blend of fearlessness and grace, she graced screens as a leading woman in films like The Philadelphia Story. In this film, Hepburn took on the role of Tracy Lord, a character as sharp-witted as she was sophisticated. Tracy was a woman of privilege, whose impending marriage led to a series of comedic and introspective events. Through her role, she showed viewers that she was capable of effortlessly balancing humor and vulnerability. She also appeared in The Lion in Winter, where she tackled the formidable role of Eleanor of Aquitaine, a historical character known for her intelligence and political acumen. Set against the backdrop of a tumultuous royal family gathering, the film provided a stage for Hepburn's powerful performance. All through her career, she stood as a beacon of empowerment, showing women across the globe that they could be anything they aspired to be. In an era where women were often relegated to stereotypical roles, she shattered those confines with finesse. She carved her own path through a jungle of conventions, choosing roles with purpose and challenging societal norms. She wasn't just an actress, she was an advocate for her rights in an industry notorious for exploitation. Her legacy extends beyond her filmography. She earned the title of the American Film Academy's #1 female screen legend of the classic Hollywood era, a testament to her enduring impact. She was a modern woman of her time, an emblem of strength, resilience, and excellence. Katharine didn't just act. She redefined an industry and showed the world that indeed nothing was out of reach for women who dared to dream. Mae West. If there was any woman who was unapologetic about sensuality, it was Mae West, and she was determined to create a world where women were unashamed of expressing themselves freely, even if it landed her in jail. As a Hollywood actress and playwright, West's plays were so daring and risque that they landed her in hot water. In 1927, she was arrested and brought to trial for indecency due to her play titled Sex. Now, most people might have backed down, but not Mae West. She was as stubborn as they come, refusing to back down regardless of the legal situation. She knew her ideas were brilliant, and she was determined to see them through. One of the best ways to describe her is as a sultry siren draped in silk, a cigarette dangling from her lips, and a sly smile that could melt icebergs. She wasn't just a star, she was a sensation. Mae understood that sensuality was her secret weapon, and she wielded it like a pro. In an era of prudishness, she pushed boundaries with her seductive wit and provocative one-liners. Her subversive charm was a breath of fresh air in the stuffy Hollywood of her time. Critics might have gasped, but audiences adored her audacity. She wasn't just an actress, she was a cultural icon. Mae West's love affair with sensuality wasn't just a personal indulgence, it was her career rocket fuel. She penned her scripts, ensuring she had the juiciest lines, and she flaunted her hourglass figure in form-fitting gowns, daring censors to blink. Hollywood may have tried to tame her, but Mae's fiery spirit couldn't be extinguished. She wowed her fans with some of her most famous works like I'm No Angel and She Done Him Wrong. What made her stand out in her time was her magnetic charisma, her fearless embrace of her own sexuality, and her sharp wit. She wrote her own fantastically quotable dialogue, and some of her most famous lines are still celebrated today. She once said, "When I'm good, I'm very good, but when I'm bad, I'm better." Now, that's the kind of sass and charm that made Mae West an unforgettable Hollywood icon. She didn't just break the mold, she shattered it, leaving a legacy that's as fierce and fabulous as the lady herself. Bette Davis. With a cigarette in one hand and a fierceness that couldn't be doused, Bette Davis was on a mission to make a name for herself, and no one could stop her. She was like a freight train when it came to chasing her dreams. She kicked off her career as a Broadway actress, but she didn't stop there. She packed her bags and headed west to Hollywood in search of feature-length roles. During her early years in Hollywood, people could see that she wasn't your typical Hollywood beauty. She knew her talent was her ticket to stardom. Davis didn't bow to societal pressures or conventional standards of beauty. She simply let her acting prowess do the talking. She fearlessly took on roles that would make most actors hesitate. She played strong, independent women and characters with moral shades of gray. She didn't shy away from controversial stories. She embraced them. Her role in All About Eve, where she portrayed Margot Channing, an aging Broadway star whose career was slowly fading, is one of the roles that she is remembered for. She won several awards during her career, including her second Academy Award for her role as Julie Marsden, a headstrong Southern belle whose actions create scandal and intrigue. All through her lifetime, one of the things that people liked about her was her authenticity. She was never afraid to transform herself completely for a role, diving headfirst into the character's psyche. No pretense, just pure, unfiltered emotion. Her work ethic was legendary. Bette Davis demanded excellence from herself and everyone around her. She pushed the boundaries of her craft and inspired others to do the same. It is safe to say that she paved the way for generations of women. Ava Gardner. One look at Ava Gardner and her beauty would knock you off your feet. But beyond her looks, Ava Gardner possessed an acting talent that made her irresistible. Born on the 24th of December, 1922, Ava Gardner spent most of her early years in Grabtown, North Carolina. Her roots were firmly planted in rural soil, far from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Growing up, she wanted to be an actress, but when she got into Hollywood, she didn't get reasonable roles. In fact, during the early 1940s, she was just another face in the crowd of Hollywood hopefuls, with small roles that appeared more numerous than significant. A few years later, she began to gain more recognition, and her breakthrough came in 1946 when she starred in The Killers. It wasn't just her striking beauty that captured hearts, but also her raw talent and magnetic presence on screen. From that moment, there was no stopping her. One of her most notable performances came in the 1951 adaptation of Showboat, a timeless classic that had seen two previous incarnations since 1929. Ava Gardner's name was like a beacon, drawing audiences to theaters, and it catapulted the film to become the third highest-grossing movie of the year, raking in over $7 million at the box office. She had a unique ability to infuse herself into different characters, and she was unafraid to take on complex roles, tackling both drama and comedy with equal grace. In an era where stereotypes often ruled, Ava Gardner stood out. She was a strong, independent woman on and off the screen. Through her works, she inspired countless women to go after their dreams. Ida Lupino. She was the definition of beauty, brains, and artistic ambition. She was an unassuming woman who was constantly doing exploits behind and in front of the camera. Like many Hollywood stars, she hailed from a family deeply immersed in the entertainment industry, with her father being a renowned stage comedian and her mother an actress. So you could say that the showbiz bug was in her blood from the get-go. Ida made her acting debut at the tender age of 13 in a British film titled Her First Affair in 1932, but she didn't stay on her home turf for long. Hollywood beckoned, and in 1933, at the age of 15, she set sail for the land of dreams. Her first Hollywood film was The Devil's in Love, which wasn't a massive hit but certainly got her foot in the door. It didn't take long for her talent and charisma to catch the eye of studio executives, and she began to land more prominent roles. In her early years, Lupino was groomed as a potential replacement for none other than Bette Davis at Warner Brothers. She had that special something, a wounded, soulful toughness that set her apart, even in the most forgettable films. Ida Lupino wasn't content with just being a leading lady on the silver screen. She had bigger dreams. She soaked up the fine art of direction by watching the likes of Raoul Walsh and William Wellman. Ida would later do what few dared to do at the time. She formed her own independent production company. This was a game changer. With that, Lupino opened the door to a whole new world of creativity and control. When it came to creativity, Ida Lupino wasn't interested in playing it safe. She chose controversial, socially conscious issues as the themes of her movies. She chose topics like rape, bigamy, polio, and unwed motherhood. These were groundbreaking subjects that challenged the norms of the day. Her works were loved and applauded by many, and it was clear that Ida made a conscious decision to live a life worth emulating. She passed away several decades ago, but several women are inspired by her story to date. Lois Weber. To Lois Weber, filmmaking was not just another job, it was an opportunity for her to give a voice to the voiceless and addressing issues that were not talked about in her time. She wasn't just a filmmaker of great skill, she was a bona fide auteur, a pioneer in every sense of the word. One of her most celebrated films was The Blot, a searing exploration of class disparities and the challenges faced by educators. It was a hit at the box office and cemented her reputation as a filmmaker who could tackle weighty subjects with grace and insight. She also directed Where Are My Children?, a groundbreaking film that dared to address the controversial topic of birth control way before it was considered acceptable in polite society. Lois had this incredible knack for taking on the most pressing social issues of her time, and interestingly, many of these issues are still haunting us today. Class tensions, she tackled that. Religious hypocrisy, she went there. And let's not forget about the struggles of women in poverty. Lois was on the front lines, bringing these stories to life. Lois Weber had a unique and incredible storytelling style. She had this incredible ability to infuse her films with allegorical elements, making her narratives resonate on a deeper, thought-provoking level. Lois Weber's story and works shows the power of film to shine a light on society's darkest corners. Dorothy Dandridge. She may have come from a family of performers, but Dorothy Dandridge didn't have a golden ticket. She had to carve her own path. When she was ready to embark on her journey in Hollywood, there was a major barrier in front of her, one that was born as a result of the color of her skin. In the early 1920s, she was born into a family of performers. Her mother, Ruby Dandridge, was an actress, and her sister, Vivian Dandridge, also pursued a career in entertainment. In the 1930s, when she was just a child, Dorothy and her family moved to Los Angeles, where she grew up in the heart of the budding film industry. As a teenager, she and her sister formed a singing and dancing duo called the Wonder Children, performing in venues around the city. Shortly after, life presented her with a platform where talent met opportunity. In the 1930s and 40s, Hollywood was still a segregated place, but there were opportunities for black performers in entertainment venues known as black nightclubs. Dorothy's talent caught the eye of talent scouts, and she began performing at these clubs. Her unique beauty and mesmerizing voice made her a rising star in the black entertainment circuit. But breaking into mainstream Hollywood was a different beast. The film industry was predominantly white, and racial barriers were high. Despite facing racial discrimination and limited roles for black actors, Dorothy Dandridge was determined to make her mark. In the 1940s, she started getting small roles in Hollywood films, often cast as a singer or dancer. These early roles might have been modest, but they were stepping stones. Slowly but surely, she gained recognition for her talent and versatility and her unique approach to acting. The turning point was her iconic role in Carmen Jones in 1954. It wasn't just a role, it was a statement. Carmen Jones. This movie wasn't just a stepping stone, it was a rocket launch for Dandridge's career. In 1954, she stepped into the shoes of Carmen Jones, a role that would make history. Carmen Jones featured an all-black cast, a rarity in those times. The film performed so well that it raked in over $10 million at the box office, proving that talent knows no color lines. Interestingly, Dandridge's performance in Carmen Jones didn't just make her a star, it made her the first African-American woman to snag a nomination for Best Actress. This groundbreaking move that paved the way for so many talented women to follow in her footsteps. But Dorothy didn't stop at movies. She had a voice that could move mountains and captivate audiences. A year after her big movie breakthrough, she graced the Empire Room in the heart of New York City, and she was the first black performer to do so. Unlike many female entertainers in her time, Dorothy Dandridge didn't rely on her beauty. She relied on her skills, her hard work, and her sheer determination. She showed the world that success in Hollywood didn't have to come in a one-size-fits-all package. Her legacy continues to echo, and her story serves as an inspiration for all aspiring talents out there. At a time when the spotlight was often reserved for a select few, she barged right in and commanded that spotlight with her incredible talent. She will forever be remembered as an actress who swung the doors of fame wide open for people of color. The Golden Age was truly an interesting time in the history of Hollywood. Not only did it produce some of the most groundbreaking women in Hollywood, there were also several Hollywood stars who were allegedly working as spies during World War II. Could Marlene Dietrich's captivating eyes have been windows to a life filled with secrets and danger? Was the iconic actress not just stealing scenes, but also stealing classified information? As rumors swirled like a tempest, Marlene's life teetered on the edge of a precipice, her legacy at risk of being forever tarnished. But what if these whispers were more than just idle gossip? What if they were the echoes of covert operations so secretive they could alter the course of history? Hold on to your seats, because Marlene is just the tip of the iceberg. Hollywood's glittering facade has long concealed a labyrinth of secrets, and some of its brightest stars may have been embroiled in espionage, their double lives as thrilling as any blockbuster. In today's pulse-pounding video, we're peeling back layers of intrigue to reveal the Hollywood icons who might have been living on the edge, risking it all in a high-stakes game of espionage. From heart-stopping missions behind enemy lines to desperate alliances shrouded in mystery, we're unearthing stories so electrifying they've been hidden for decades. Prepare for a whirlwind journey that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about Hollywood's golden age. This is one cinematic experience you'll never forget. The era of espionage in Hollywood. The glitz and glamour of Hollywood in the 1940s and 50s were a facade, a glittering mask that hid a world teeming with secrets and lies. The United States was embroiled in World War II and later the Cold War, casting long shadows over the land of dreams. Hollywood was not just a place of make-believe. It was a strategic asset, a propaganda machine, and a hotbed for political and ideological battles. The U.S. government saw the film industry as a powerful tool for shaping public opinion. The Office of War Information worked closely with studios to produce films that would boost morale and promote the American way of life, but where there was power, there was also the potential for subversion. The fear of communist infiltration was palpable. The House Un-American Activities Committee turned its gaze toward Hollywood, leading to the infamous blacklist that ruined careers and lives. In this atmosphere of heightened tension and paranoia, the line between actor and spy began to blur. The government recruited from Hollywood's ranks, seeking individuals who could move seamlessly between different roles both on and off the screen. These stars had access to high-profile events and influential people, making them ideal candidates for gathering intelligence. It was a time when anyone could be a spy and everyone was under suspicion. The stakes were high and the penalties for failure were even higher. In this world of smoke and mirrors, some of Hollywood's brightest stars would risk it all, embarking on clandestine missions that would take them far from the safety of the spotlight. But was Cary Grant alone? The next star's story is even more intriguing. Cary Grant, the British charmer. Born Archibald Alec Leach in Bristol, England in 1904, was the epitome of Hollywood charm and sophistication. With his suave demeanor and impeccable style, he captured the hearts of audiences worldwide. But behind that debonair smile lay a man of complexity, a man whose life was as intriguing off-screen as it was on. Grant's journey to Hollywood stardom was anything but ordinary. He ran away from home at the age of 14 to join a vaudeville troupe, honing his skills as a performer before making his way to the United States. By the late 1930s, he had become one of Hollywood's leading men, starring in classics like Bringin' Up Baby and His Girl Friday. His fame afforded him access to the upper echelons of society, a privilege that did not go unnoticed by those in power. As World War II raged on, the lines between entertainment and politics became increasingly blurred. Cary Grant, a British citizen who had yet to become an American, found himself in a unique position. His international status and connections made him an attractive asset for intelligence agencies. In 1941, the British Security Coordination, a secret arm of the British intelligence operating in New York, approached Grant for a mission that would take him far from the Hollywood Hills. The operation was shrouded in secrecy, but it involved using Grant's celebrity status to gain access to high-profile events where he could gather information on Axis sympathizers in the United States. Grant was trained in the art of espionage, learning how to intercept communications and how to operate in the shadows. He was given a new identity, complete with a fabricated background and false documents. His mission was so confidential that even his closest confidants were kept in the dark. For years, Grant balanced his life as a Hollywood star and a covert operative, attending glamorous parties by night and engaging in secret missions by day. He was said to have been involved in Operation Mincemeat, a deceptive strategy that used misinformation to mislead Nazi Germany about the invasion of southern Europe. While the full extent of his involvement remains classified, declassified documents have hinted at his contributions to the war effort, which went far beyond his roles on the silver screen. But as the war came to an end, so did Grant's covert operations. He returned to Hollywood, resuming his career as if nothing had happened. Yet those who knew him said he was a changed man, haunted by the secrets he had carried and the lives he had touched. He became increasingly reclusive, shunning the spotlight he had once embraced. But was Cary Grant alone in this high-stakes game of espionage and intrigue? Far from it. The next Star's story is even more captivating, a tale that takes us from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood to the dark and dangerous world of international espionage. Marlene Dietrich, the German enigma. Born Marie Magdalena Dietrich in Berlin, Germany in 1901, was a woman of enigma and allure. Her smoky voice and magnetic screen presence made her an international sensation, but it was her off-screen activities that would add an indelible layer of intrigue to her legacy. Dietrich's rise to stardom was meteoric. She caught the eye of director Josef von Sternberg, who cast her in The Blue Angel, a film that would catapult her to international fame. Hollywood soon beckoned, and Dietrich answered the call, leaving her native Germany for the promise of American stardom. But as she ascended the ladder of success, the world around her was descending into chaos. The rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime cast a dark shadow over Europe, and Dietrich, a staunch anti-Nazi, found herself torn between her homeland and her new life in America. It was during this tumultuous period that Dietrich was approached by the Office of Strategic Services, the precursor to the CIA. Her mission, should she choose to accept it, was to use her celebrity status and connections to gather intelligence on Nazi activities. Dietrich didn't hesitate. She saw it as her moral duty to fight against the regime that was tearing her homeland apart. Trained in espionage techniques, including cryptography and psychological warfare, Dietrich was more than just a pretty face. She was a highly skilled operative. She embarked on a series of covert missions, often traveling under the guise of USO performances for troops. Her close relationship with General George Patton gave her unprecedented access to military strategies and plans, information she passed on to Allied forces. But Dietrich's most daring mission came in 1944, during the liberation of Paris. Posing as a German nurse, she infiltrated a POW camp to gather information on German troop movements. The intelligence she collected was invaluable, aiding in the successful liberation of the city. For her bravery, she was awarded the Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States. Yet, despite her heroic efforts, Dietrich's activities were not without controversy. Rumors swirled about her relationships with both men and women, including high-ranking military officials and fellow spies. These liaisons raised eyebrows, leading some to question the nature of her involvement in espionage activities. Was she a patriot, or was she using her missions as a cover for more personal endeavors? As the war ended and the Cold War began, Dietrich found herself once again at the intersection of fame and infamy. She continued to act, but the roles she took on were tinged with a sense of melancholy, as if reflecting the complex, multifaceted life she had led. If you thought Marlene Dietrich's story was captivating, wait until you hear about our next star, a woman whose life was a tapestry of art, activism, and espionage. Her story is one that defies belief. Josephine Baker, the French Connection. She was born Freda Josephine MacDonald in St. Louis, Missouri in 1906. She rose from the depths of poverty to become one of the most iconic entertainers of the 20th century. Known for her electrifying performances and her signature banana skirt, Baker was a sensation in Paris, far away from the racial segregation and discrimination she faced in her home country. But beneath the sequins and the spotlight was a woman of extraordinary courage, a woman who would become an unsung hero in the fight against tyranny. Baker's journey to espionage began in the dark days leading up to World War II. She had made France her home, and when the country she loved was threatened by Nazi occupation, she knew she had to act. Baker was recruited by the French Resistance, a clandestine organization fighting against Nazi rule. Her fame and her frequent travels provided the perfect cover for her activities as a spy. Her missions were fraught with danger but vital for the resistance. She smuggled secret messages and photographs across borders, hiding them in her sheet music or even sewn into her dresses. She gathered intelligence from high-ranking Japanese officials and Axis officers, often during her performances or at social events where she was the star attraction. Her Cafe Society connections were a treasure trove of information, and she exploited them to the fullest. But perhaps her most audacious act came in 1941 when she was enlisted for Operation Zeppelin, a mission to gather information on Italian air bases in North Africa. Posing as a journalist, Baker used her charm and wit to gain access to restricted areas, collecting data that was crucial for Allied forces. The intelligence she gathered was used in planning the North African campaign, a turning point in the war. For her bravery, Baker received several honors, including the Croix de Guerre and the Rosette of the Resistance. She was the first American woman to receive such high French military honors, yet despite her heroism, her contributions were often overshadowed by her stage persona, leading many to underestimate the depth of her involvement in espionage activities. After the war, Baker continued to break barriers, becoming a vocal advocate for civil rights and racial equality. She returned to the United States in the 1950s using her platform to speak against segregation and discrimination. Yet, the scars of her wartime experiences never fully healed. She was a woman divided, caught between the allure of the stage and the harsh realities of a world torn apart by conflict. Josephine Baker was not the only one using her international fame for espionage. Stay tuned for our next chapter, where we delve into the life of a Hollywood star whose espionage activities were so secret they were only revealed decades later. Sterling Hayden, the reluctant patriot. Born Sterling Relia Walter in Montclair, New Jersey in 1916, was a man of many faces, a sailor, a Marine, a Hollywood actor, and a writer. Hayden lived a life that read like a novel, but one of the most intriguing chapters of his life was his involvement in espionage during World War II and the Cold War, a chapter that remained hidden for decades. Before he became a Hollywood star, Hayden was a sailor. His love for the sea led him to join the Marine Corps, where he served with distinction. But it was his rugged good looks and towering presence that caught the eye of Hollywood scouts. Soon he was starring in films like Asphalt Jungle and Dr. Strangelove and becoming a household name. Yet, despite his success, Hayden was a man plagued by inner demons, a man searching for a purpose beyond the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. That purpose came in the form of a secret mission orchestrated by the Office of Strategic Services. Hayden was recruited for Operation Underworld, a clandestine effort to gather intelligence on Axis powers. His maritime skills made him an ideal candidate for the mission, which involved infiltrating enemy lines to collect information on naval movements and submarine activities. Hayden underwent rigorous training, learning the arts of sabotage, cryptography, and hand-to-hand combat. He was given a new identity, complete with a fabricated backstory and false documents. His mission took him to the treacherous waters of the Mediterranean, where he operated undercover as a fisherman. The intelligence he gathered was invaluable, aiding in the planning of Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of North Africa. But Hayden's involvement in espionage didn't end with World War II. During the Cold War, he was once again called upon to serve his country, this time as a CIA operative. His mission was to infiltrate communist circles in Eastern Europe, gathering intelligence on Soviet activities. The details of these missions remain classified, but what is known is that Hayden's work had a significant impact on U.S. foreign policy during a critical period in history. Yet, despite his contributions, Hayden was a reluctant patriot. He was disillusioned by the bureaucracy and the moral ambiguities of espionage, leading him to question the very ideals he had fought for. In his later years, he turned to writing, penning an autobiography that touched upon his experiences but left much unsaid. He passed away in 1986, taking many of his secrets to the grave. Up next, a star whose espionage activities were so secret they were only revealed decades later, involving not just espionage but also a tale of love and betrayal. Noel Coward, the master of disguise. Born in 1899 in Teddington, England, was a man of many talents. A playwright, composer, director, actor, and singer, Coward was a Renaissance man in the truest sense. His wit and charm made him a darling of London's West End and Broadway, but it was his work behind the scenes in the murky world of espionage that adds an unexpected twist to his storied life. Coward's foray into the world of espionage began at the onset of World War II. His close friendship with Winston Churchill provided him an entry into the British Secret Service. Churchill, recognizing Coward's unique skill set, enlisted him in the Political Warfare Executive, a secret organization aimed at spreading propaganda and gathering intelligence. Given his extensive travels and international connections, Coward was the perfect candidate for covert operations. He was trained in the arts of deception, code-breaking, and psychological manipulation. Armed with these skills and his natural charisma, Coward embarked on a series of missions that took him from the salons of Paris to the political hotbeds of Africa and the Middle East. One of his most daring missions involved infiltrating the Vichy government in France. Posing as a neutral journalist, Coward gained access to high-ranking officials, gathering intelligence on troop movements and political alliances. His reports were instrumental in shaping British strategy in the North African campaign, particularly the Battle of El Alamein, a turning point in the war. But Coward's espionage activities were not without personal cost. His relationship with longtime partner Graham Payne came under scrutiny, leading to rumors and innuendos. The British government, wary of the potential scandal, sidelined Coward, relegating him to less risky propaganda work. Yet, despite these setbacks, Coward continued to serve his country in any way he could, even if it meant sacrificing his personal happiness. After the war, Coward returned to the stage, but the experiences of his espionage days left an indelible mark on him. His later works, such as The Vortex and Private Lives, reflected a darker, more introspective tone, as if mirroring the complexities and moral ambiguities of the world he had navigated as a spy. Our next star's story involves not just espionage, but also a tale of love and betrayal. A woman whose beauty and intellect made her a perfect spy, yet whose activities remained a well-guarded family secret until her final days. Hedy Lamarr, the inventive spy. Born Hedwig Eva Maria Kiesler in 1914 in Vienna, Austria, Hedy Lamarr was a woman ahead of her time. Known for her stunning beauty and her roles in films like Algiers and Samson and Delilah, Lamarr was a Hollywood icon. But what many don't know is that she was also a brilliant inventor and a spy whose contributions significantly impacted the course of World War II. Lamar's journey into the world of espionage began after her escape from an oppressive marriage to Fritz Mandl, a wealthy Austrian arms dealer with ties to fascist regimes. Fleeing to the United States, she caught the eye of MGM Studios and quickly rose to stardom. But as World War II raged on, Lamar felt compelled to contribute to the war effort in a meaningful way. Her opportunity came when she met George Antheil, an avant-garde composer and former weapons inspector. Together, they developed a frequency-hopping technology designed to prevent the jamming of radio-controlled torpedoes. This invention was years ahead of its time and was the precursor to modern-day Wi-Fi and Bluetooth technologies. But Lamar didn't stop there. Using her connections in the entertainment industry and her frequent trips to Europe, she gathered intelligence on Axis powers. Her status as a Hollywood star gave her access to diplomatic parties and military gatherings where she would subtly extract information from unsuspecting officials. This intelligence was passed on to the Allies, providing valuable insights into enemy strategies and technologies. Despite her contributions, Lamar's efforts went largely unrecognized during her lifetime. The U.S. Navy was skeptical of her invention, and it wasn't until the 1960s that her frequency-hopping technology was implemented. Moreover, her espionage activities were so clandestine that they remained a well-guarded secret even to her family. In her later years, Lamar became a recluse, shunning the public eye and living in relative obscurity. She passed away in 2000, but it wasn't until after her death that her contributions to science and espionage were fully acknowledged. She was posthumously inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame, a fitting tribute to a woman whose beauty was matched only by her brilliance. Think this is shocking? Our next star's involvement in espionage was a well-guarded family secret so deeply buried that it took decades to come to light. John Wayne, the American icon, born Marion Robert Morrison in 1907 in Winterset, Iowa, John Wayne was the epitome of American masculinity. With his towering frame, rugged good looks, and a voice that commanded attention, Wayne became a symbol of American values and ideals. Known for his roles in classic films like Stagecoach, The Searchers, and True Grit, he was a Hollywood legend. But behind the scenes, Wayne led a life that was far more complex and controversial, including allegations of involvement in espionage activities during the Cold War. Wayne's connection to the world of espionage began in the early 1950s, a period marked by heightened tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. As a staunch anti-communist, Wayne was a vocal supporter of the House Un-American Activities Committee, a congressional group tasked with investigating alleged disloyalty and subversive activities. His political stance caught the attention of the FBI, who saw in him a potential asset for gathering intelligence. Operating under the codename Duke, a nod to his famous nickname, Wayne was tasked with infiltrating Hollywood circles suspected of communist sympathies. His mission was to gather information on actors, directors, and producers who were believed to be aiding Soviet propaganda efforts. Given his status in the industry, Wayne had access to private gatherings and confidential information, making him an effective undercover operative. However, Wayne's involvement in espionage was fraught with moral dilemmas. While he was committed to fighting communism, he struggled with the ethical implications of spying on his colleagues, many of whom were close friends. This internal conflict took a toll on his personal life, leading to strained relationships and a growing sense of isolation. Despite these challenges, Wayne continued his covert activities until the late 1950s. The intelligence he gathered was instrumental in several high-profile investigations, although the full extent of his contributions remains classified. After retiring from espionage, Wayne focused on his acting career, but the experiences of his secret life left an indelible mark on him, influencing his political views and artistic choices for the rest of his life. But not all stories have a heroic ending. The next star's espionage activities led to a tragic downfall, a tale that serves as a cautionary reminder of the risks involved in the shadowy world of espionage. Charlie Chaplin, the comedic informant, born Charles Spencer, Chaplin in 1889 in London, England, Charlie Chaplin was a man who needed no introduction. His iconic character, the Tramp, became a global phenomenon, making Chaplin one of the most famous figures in the history of cinema. Known for his comedic genius in films like The Kid, City Lights, and Modern Times, Chaplin was a master of silent film. But what many don't know is that his life off-screen was filled with political intrigue, including allegations of espionage during the Cold War era. Chaplin's political leanings were always a subject of debate. While he openly criticized fascism and promoted social justice, his views were often interpreted as sympathetic to communism, especially during the McCarthy era. This made him a person of interest for the FBI, who kept a close eye on his activities both in the United States and abroad. In a twist of irony, Chaplin was approached by British intelligence agencies to serve as an informant. Given his international fame and access to high-profile individuals, he was seen as a valuable asset for gathering information on communist activities in Europe. Operating under the codename Limelight, a reference to one of his films, Chaplin was tasked with attending social events and diplomatic functions to collect intelligence. One of his most daring missions involved a trip to the Soviet Union, where he was invited to meet Joseph Stalin. Posing as a goodwill ambassador for the arts, Chaplin used the opportunity to gather information on Soviet military capabilities and political strategies. The intelligence he collected was passed on to British and American agencies, providing valuable insights into the inner workings of the Kremlin. However, Chaplin's involvement in espionage came at a high personal cost. His political activities made him a target for the House Un-American Activities Committee, leading to his eventual exile from the United States. Despite the risks, Chaplin continued his covert operations, even as he faced public scrutiny and personal hardships. Our final star's story is perhaps the most controversial of them all. A woman whose life was shrouded in mystery and whose involvement in espionage activities remains a subject of intense debate to this day. Don't go anywhere. Greta Garbo, the mysterious operative. Born Greta Lovisa Gustafsson in 1905 in Stockholm, Sweden, Greta Garbo was the epitome of enigmatic allure. With her smoldering eyes and aloof demeanor, she captivated audiences in films like Anna Karenina, Grand Hotel, and Camille. But behind that inscrutable facade lay a woman of many layers, including allegations of involvement in espionage during World War II. Garbo's journey into the world of espionage is as mysterious as the woman herself. During the war, she took a hiatus from acting and disappeared from the public eye. Rumors swirled about her whereabouts, but it wasn't until years later that the truth began to emerge. According to declassified documents, Garbo was recruited by British intelligence to serve as a spy, operating under the code name the Swedish Sphinx. Her mission was to infiltrate Nazi social circles and gather information on German military plans. Given her Swedish nationality and her neutral stance, Garbo was able to move freely across Europe, attending parties and social events frequented by high-ranking Nazi officials. Her beauty and charm made her a welcome guest, allowing her to extract valuable intelligence without arousing suspicion. One of her most daring exploits involved a secret meeting with Heinrich Himmler, the Reichsfuhrer of the SS. Posing as a sympathizer to the Nazi cause, Garbo gained his trust and acquired critical information on the V-2 rocket program, which she promptly relayed to British intelligence. This intelligence was instrumental in shaping Allied strategies, potentially saving countless lives. Despite the risks and the moral complexities of her role, Garbo carried out her duties with utmost secrecy. Even her closest friends and family were unaware of her clandestine activities, making her one of the most effective spies of her time. After the war, Garbo returned to her reclusive life, never speaking publicly about her espionage activities. She passed away in 1990, taking her secrets to the grave, leaving us to ponder the depths of her enigmatic life. From the glitz and glamour of Hollywood to the shadowy corridors of international espionage, the lives of these stars were far more complex than what met the eye. Their stories serve as a testament to the intricate tapestry of history where fame, politics, and secrecy intertwine in unexpected ways. If you enjoyed this documentary, check out the next video in this series.